Okay, I believe we are recording. So welcome everyone. For those of you that are new with us this first time, we are all of your states are part of what is called the ID&R consortium. We are a consortium of states that is focused on how to identify migrant students faster. So hopefully we can be more efficient and use more funds for services and things like that. And I have my colleague, Danielle, who is going to be our presenter today. So she is a member of the, we have these groups in the consortium that all work on different tasks. And she is a member of the data reconciliation group. And this group has a lot of experts, including her, that really do a lot with migrant data. And one of the things that the group really discussed was the need to have maybe the insights that might help people know how to use spreadsheets and look at student data. And we felt like this could be helpful for both recruiters and for data entry staff. So I'm sure you guys come from all different backgrounds, but what we're going to do today, like we always say, we're not experts in Excel, but Danielle knows Excel and uses it all the time and is going to share from her perspective the things that she does. And so I think that it'll be really helpful. And I am grateful for her. We asked the group who would be willing to be trainer, and she stepped up, thankfully for all of us, so that we can learn from her. So I'm going to turn the time over to her, and then I will man the chat box. So the way these work, you'll basically hear probably her voice or my voice. But if someone really gets stuck and needs to ask a question, we can unmute you later on, but we would prefer that you would use the chat box and add any questions that you have, and I'll pay attention to that, and we'll answer those questions as we go throughout it. So I will mute myself and turn the time over to Danielle.
All right, thank you, Jessica. Thank you everybody for joining. As Jessica mentioned, we're going to talk about beginning Excel, and more specifically using Microsoft Excel to analyze MEP data. So I'm just going to let you know how I use Excel on a day-to-day basis, and this will be more of a tips and tricks type of presentation. So first of all, let me introduce myself with my Don't Stop Believin' Christmas sweater there. I'm Danielle Waite. I am the program analyst, or what would be the state data coordinator for the Nebraska MEP, and I've been doing that for 9 years. As Jessica mentioned, I'm a member of the ID&R data reconciliation work group, which is by far the coolest group. Sorry guys, just kidding. We use the state data system MIS 2000. So things that I use Excel for, this is just a few of them, but quality control, making sure our data is clean, analyzing reports so we can make decisions on a state level. I do the consolidated state performance report, so everything included in that report, preparing for it, actually running reports and sorting those reports, I use Excel for. And just finding out information, child count, PFS, served, all of those kinds of things. And our continuous improvement data that I send on to Carrie when we have to do our continuous improvement steps and things like that. So I'm constantly using Excel for many aspects of my job. And like Jessica said, this is my disclaimer, I am not an Excel expert. I actually just kind of learn as I go, and as I need something, I figure out how to do it. And so as kind of I'm guessing a lot of the people joining today are kind of the same. So there are ways that I do things that maybe you do it a different way. And I think we do a great job of like learning from each other in that aspect. So I'm just going to show you my perspective and how I use it today. So I know Jessica's watching the chat box and I can see it too. If you could just tell me what your position is and what you use Excel for most often, just so I can kind of get an idea of kind of our group here. And like Jessica mentioned, there's oftentimes, you know, different things you can use spreadsheets for that within your job, whether you're a recruiter, a data person, a service provider. Oftentimes like timesheets and things are in spreadsheets in Excel. So we've got recruiters here, migrant liaisons, a lot of logs. Okay, importing Excel information into Google Maps, stuff like that. I would really like to, as we have these trainings, to do some of that. So maybe we'll call in some other experts. Review mass enrollment list. We've got some data coordinators on here. Data entry, referrals. Awesome, thanks for sharing. You can continue to put those in, and we'll also use some of that information as we look into future trainings too, to see kind of what our audience is and your level and things like that. So thank you for sharing that. Some of today's topics, we only have an hour, so I had to choose kind of the most important things that I wanted to share with you today, because there's so many functions in Excel. So today we'll be looking at common terms, formatting, sorting, filtering, counting, different quality control measures that I like to use, removing duplicate records, how to freeze panes and view your data, how to find and select data, and also password protecting. And then I have a few other things in there too, but that's kind of, and as Jessica mentioned, she gave you the link to the spreadsheet we'll be using today. If you have a couple screens and you're able to follow along, go ahead. Otherwise, this is recorded. So if you want to do that later and mess around with it afterwards, feel free. But I just thought it would be nice to share the spreadsheet that I'll be using. So we'll start with some common terms, just so we're kind of on the same page. A ribbon, so above the workbook is a section of command tabs called the ribbon. And then there's different options found behind the ribbon. So you've got your tabs up here, and then the ribbon is the options you have within the ribbon. A formula is a sequence inside a cell that's used to produce a value. Must begin with equal. This could be a mathematical equation, cell references, functions, or operator. It's also known as an expression. We'll be talking about cell formatting, and that's just changing the data within the cell displayed in the spreadsheet. When you format cells, only the visual appearance of the cells change, the value of the cells remain constant. So a workbook refers to an Excel spreadsheet file. The workbook houses all of the data that you have entered and allows you to sort or calculate the results. And then we have worksheet. So within the workbook is where you find documents called worksheets, also known as spreadsheets, and you can have multiple worksheets within a workbook. The tabs at the bottom of the screen will indicate which of your worksheets you are currently working on. So in my screenshot here, I opened a few sheets. So collectively, this would be considered a workbook. And then you have multiple sheets within your workbook. So these are the worksheets. And then a cell is the rectangular block housed within a worksheet. So you see the highlighted, the first one there, A1 in the table is highlighted. It's surrounded with green. Any data you want to enter into your worksheet must be placed in a cell. So you can type in the cell and you can color code them and format them based on what you want to accomplish. And then we'll be talking about columns and rows. So columns and rows refer to how your cells are aligned. Columns are aligned vertically while rows are horizontal. Then there's columns and row headings. We'll be talking about that also. The headings are the lettered and numbered gray areas found just outside the columns and rows. So clicking on a heading will select the entire row or column. You can also alter the row height or column width using the headings, and we'll kind of do that as we work on formatting, but that's this gray area here. Oh, and I already did ribbon and formula. Okay, filter, we'll look at filtering. Filters are rules that you can employ to decide which rows in a worksheet to display. So we'll be doing a lot of that today. These filters can use data such as conditions or values. We'll also be learning how to freeze panes. It'll allow you to select specific columns and or rows to remain visible on the worksheet, even if you're scrolling, such as header cells that label a column. Okay, no, it's not over. I'm just gonna switch into my spreadsheet now. So if you guys don't wanna follow along using the spreadsheet, I'm going to open that. You can see my children playing the piano while I do this. Okay, so I'm just going to start by opening Excel. And when you open Excel, you have the option to open a blank workbook, or there are a lot of templates, and that could be a whole nother thing. But I have I call it SSR for Excel training is my file. So I'm just going to open that. So like I mentioned, we use MIS 2000 in Nebraska. And so the reports that we run, they save as a spreadsheet. So then you can manipulate that spreadsheet from there. So the first thing when I have a report from MIS 2000, it's oftentimes looks like this, where the cells aren't formatted. I can't read everything in the cells. So you're able to manipulate the cells using these. You can change the width of each column, or you can change the width of each row if you'd like. But since this is a big report, it's got quite a bit of data. So what I like to do, instead of taking the time to do that, if you click this top left-hand corner with this little triangle in it, it'll select all, and then you just go in between any of the cells in the any of the header cells where it looks like you can expand, and then you just double click on it, and that will fit everything into cells so that you can read it, so nothing's squished in there. So that's a trick we use a lot. And then my preference is I can read things better when they're centered. So I'll just do that to show you how you can center everything. I've still got everything selected by clicking the top left hand up here. And then I just click up in the formatting up here and change everything to center. You have options to do things such as format as table, and I'm not going to do it because it's quite a big report and it'll take a while. So, but I'll just show you if you like to have the rows different colors so you can read them better, kind of sort things out however you'd like to do them. There are options over here to format as table. So sometimes I do that, especially if I'm sending the report on to somebody else. I think it's easier to read and prettier with the colors. Then you can do things like formatting. Maybe you want all of your headers to be bold. So if you select this number 1 in your row, it'll select the whole row, and then you can just change the format to bold. So now everything's bold. If I wanted to change the color, I want everything to be purple in my headers, then that's what I can do. You can use the fill to highlight certain cells. I do this for quality control a lot, where I just, if I need to come back to something, I know that I want to look at that date or something, I'll highlight them. Sometimes, especially when I'm doing quality control or anything like that, I might want to add a row or add a column. So by doing this, you can select kind of where you want the new column to be, and you right click and click insert. And now I have another column. And I'll just kind of do what I usually do here. Might make a row for comments. And the same goes if you want to insert a row somewhere. You select where you want that to be, right click, and click insert. And then you have a blank row, which I'm going to get rid of. Another formatting, especially if you have a lot of comments. So say, I'm just going to type a whole bunch of gibberish in here. Now that's really long and I can't see everything I wrote, but I can select that column and click wrap text. And now everything that I wrote is visible there, and it just expands my cells to be larger so that I can see everything within them. Something common, and I know we have other MIS 2000 users in here. So this applies to MIS 2000 reports a lot, but also if you have M6 IDs pulling into any kind of report. For me, if you see our M6 IDs, they look a little wonky here. So one of the first things I always do is I select this whole row, or this whole column, I'm sorry. And if you go to your number spot here and choose number, it fixes it so that they look like M6 IDs. Actually, nope. Well, for some reason today it's putting the 0.00 on it. Oh, because the decimal places. Okay, so yeah. You can take the decimal places off by clicking these arrows here to add your decimal places or to get rid of them. So an M6 ID doesn't need decimals, so you can do that. So I'm going to undo and do that again because I realized I kind of did it a little weird. Okay, so this is what it looked like when we started out. So I'm changing it to a number so I can see my M6 IDs, and then I'm clicking here, oops, wrong way, to get rid of the decimals. So that's kind of basic formatting. There's obviously a lot more you can do. You can change the font, you can change the size, things like that. And then you kind of want to choose, I'm going to go on to like how your view. So in this top here, this top tab, click view. And as I go through a spreadsheet, when I start scrolling, I can't see my headers anymore. So I don't know if these are what these dates are, you know, which of these are birth dates or QADs or what am I looking at here? So what you can do is you can freeze panes and freeze the top row. It's helpful. So now as I scroll through this large report, I can see the headers as I go through the whole thing. Sometimes you want to keep some things on the side, so you know, and then compare other data, but you know, the spreadsheet's a little bit longer. So you can always split it. So I'm going to say, you know, I want to see everybody's student ID. So that's where I want to split it. I just select that column and then, oops. See, I told you I'm not an expert. Okay, I selected what I wanted to look at in the column and then I click split. So that creates, I can scroll through my report and see the rest of my spreadsheet while keeping everything consistent over here on the side. So that's something you can play around with depending on your preferences for that. And then just click that to get rid of it. Your zoom preferences on the bottom, sometimes, especially looking at spreadsheets all day, it's kind of hard to, you don't want to squint, and especially if you're doing some comparisons and things like that. So you can use the zoom down at the bottom. And then I'm going to get into the sorting and filtering options here. So I have a spreadsheet that tells us a lot about students. There's no names or anything, and this is all just kind of a test data type thing. So, but normally this spreadsheet would have names and other information in it, possibly addresses or cities or, you know, things like that. But for these purposes, we're just keeping it simple. So one of the big things that I do when I'm analyzing data is I add filters. You can add a filter by going to your data tab and selecting filter. Notice when you do that, there's little arrows on your headers. Now, sometimes, for instance, in these headings here, the arrows are covering up I can't see what they are. So I will select all again by using the corner, and then just in between any of the cells, I double click and it moves everything so that I can read it again. So now that I have those filters, I can sort my spreadsheet. So say I want to sort the spreadsheet by birth date. So I find birth date, I click the arrow, and I want, say I want to go youngest to oldest. So I go newest to oldest. So now my spreadsheet is sorted by birth date. And when I did that, it didn't only change this column, but it changed the corresponding column. So all of your data stays together, but it's just sorting your data by birth date. Another one, if I want to sort by school ID, which in this is called any code, but these are the IDs for our facilities in Nebraska. So if I wanted to sort by ID, I could just go A to Z, and it does it numerically, and it puts everything in. And actually, I'm going to go back and freeze my panes here so I can see what I'm doing. So it puts all of your schools together. Then you have options to sort multiple ways. So say I want to sort in order of the any code or the facility code, and then by facility. So then I want my facilities to be in alphabetical order also. Oh wait, I did that wrong. You select all of your data and you go sort. And then this pops up here. So what was I doing? I was sorting by any code. And then you add a level. I want to sort by any code, and then I want to sort by facility name. So now everything's in alphabetical order, and first by any code and then in alphabetical order. If I wanted to, see, I want to sort by facility name. Yeah, facility name, and then maybe I want to sort by grade. So I'll do age grade group. So now I've sorted all my students by grade. So there's multiple things you can do with that. I'm going to sort, let's see. I'm going to sort by who's facility, and then I want PFS to be on top. Whoever is PFS within that facility would show up first. Those are just some examples on how to use the sort function. And then counting. There are multiple ways to do counting within an Excel spreadsheet. There are formulas you can use for counting, but just a quick count. If I wanted to count how many students I had in this spreadsheet, just really quick, I would find a column that I know has a value or has something in each column. So every student I know has a grade. So I'm going to, or actually, I know everybody has a project ID, which is in our state something that identifies the area they belong to. So if I click on the project ID, and then you go to the bottom right-hand corner down here, it says 3235. So it's telling me that in that column, there are 3,235 cells that have something in them. One of those is the header. So really quick, I could just tell you that there are 3,234 students in this spreadsheet. And like I said, I know there are multiple ways to count, but that's just something I do really quick if I just want to know how many students or how many of something there are. So If I wanted to know how many PFS there are, I could just go to my PFS column. Everybody's marked Y who is considered PFS for this report. And if I take a look at the count down here on the bottom right-hand corner, it says 653. I know one of those is the header, so 652 PFS at risk. There's 1,174 minus the header, so 1,173. So I know some of you are following along in your spreadsheet. So I'm going to let you use the chat just to kind of let you look. I want to know how many students were served with support services. You can tell me how many students were served support, those of you that are following along. You can go ahead and enter the number in the chat box if you know the answer. Okay. We got a few people that answered. So when we click on it, it says 1,831 students, or sorry, 1,831, but we know one of those is the header. So the answer is 1,830. How many were served instruction? The correct answer is 698. Same for, if I want to know how many students got math services in Nebraska, our code for math is MAT, and go over here and say, okay, 234 students were given math. So when we take the filtering function and then using that counting, what we know about, you know, the totaling and counting, I'm just going to, I've written down some questions I wanted to ask myself so that I could figure out certain things. I want to know how many students in Columbus High School are considered PFS. So if I want to know the answer to that, I'm going to add my filters back here. Whoops. I'm going to select everything, add my filters. There they go. And I am looking for Columbus High School. So I'm going to go to facility name. And I want to, I can expand this a little here so we can see more. I just want Columbus High School. So when I click this arrow next to facility, and I uncheck the select all because I don't want to see all schools. I want one specific school. I can either scroll through here and find Columbus High School, or there's a search here. And I can say Columbus High School. And then I don't want Columbus Middle School, so I unselected that one. So now I have Columbus High School. So these are all my students in Columbus High School, and this is the PFS column. So if I select that, I see that I have 6 PFS students in Columbus High School. If I want to know how many Columbus High School students I have 13.
You had a question about being able, could you sort it by QAD? Could you show them how to do that?
Yes, that's actually on my list of things to do, but I will show you how to do that. I do want to point out that these, when you're filtering, these rows keep their numbers. So we know that this is not row 634 in this selection. So a lot of times, if you're looking really quick, somebody might say, you know, oh, there's 646 of, you know, whatever I'm looking for rows. But when you're filtering, it doesn't change those numbers. So I just want to point that out. That's why it's important to use the count down below instead of looking at the side, because it does skip. So yes, that's a very good question about QAD. I use that for quality control quite a bit. Some of my reports have the M6 the M6 termination date, or the when their student's going to expire. And let's see, so I have QAD here. I've got my filters on. So I want to sort oldest to newest, so I can see whose eligibility is either up or will be up. So, and just to show you on this report that in Nebraska, we do an end of eligibility type situation when we do our, so that's why they're included in here. But you can see, you know, we're in December now, it's the 15th. So, you know, these students, you know, these are students that are, their eligibility is ending in the last, in December, or for what we have left in December. So yes, that's a very good point. You can sort by QAD. If I were a specific project, like I mentioned in Nebraska, our regions are, our areas are sorted into projects. So if I am from, this is, these are all in code. We speak in code in Nebraska, but these are our project IDs, and this is the project alliance, the city alliance. So I went to the filter and I only wanted to see students who belong to that project, who belong to the Alliance project. So then I can see those students, and then I sort by QAD, which was already done. But now I know that if I'm in the Alliance project, these are the students whose eligibility is ending upcoming and end of eligibility. And let's see, sometimes you have so many filters that you're working on and you don't even remember what you were doing. I might have a PFS filter, I might be sorting by a certain facility. All you have to do is just go back up to the ribbon up here and select filter, and all the filters go away. If that was an accident and you lost something, you can click undo at the top left up here and you've got it back. I always recommend clearing your filters before you start a new task, because many times I've counted wrong because I had some filter that snuck in that I forgot to get rid of. So there's a tip. Let's see, another question I have on my list here is how many students in Crete Elementary School are in kindergarten? And if any of you are following along and want to answer the question too in the chat, we can continue to do that. So I'm going to put on my filter here. And I want to know, oops, how many students in Crete Elementary School. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to search for Crete. I just want Crete Elementary School. I'm going to get rid of the high school, intermediate. There's lots of schools in Crete. Okay. So I just want Crete Elementary School, so I'm selecting that. And I want to know how many students are in kindergarten. So I'm going to go over to my age grade group over here and deselect everything. I just want kindergarten. So we have 4 students in kindergarten. I'm going to clear my filter. Let's see, I had another question on here. How many students have not been served? I want to know who has not been served based on the information I have in this spreadsheet. Now, normally in this report, those that are here from Nebraska would say, oh, there's a served column, and for some reason it's not here. So that's okay. We're going to find out who's not been served. So I want to know, oops, got my filters. Okay. So I want to look at anybody who is in instructional services who does not have a Y. So I know that these students have not been served with instructional services. So then I take that and I want to know support services, who's not been served with a support service, and I get rid of that Y. So now all that's left are students who have not been served instructionally or with support services. So these are the students that have not been served in this list. I have one more question for counting and filtering that I wrote down here. So I want to know how many students or how many 10th graders are at risk and how many of them received life skills services. So the first thing I'm going to do is put on my filter. I'm going to find my 10th graders. So we see everything was selected. I deselected all and I only want 10th grade. Now I want to know how many of them are at risk. So I go to the at risk column and I just want Y. So this gives me 10th graders who are at risk. But then the other part of my question was, I want to know how many of them have received life skills services. And that code in Nebraska is LIF. So I only want to see those that are marked Y in this column. So these are the students now in my list who are in 10th grade, who are at risk and have been coded or have been given services with life skills. I'm gonna take a second to see if anybody has any questions. I know this is kind of, like I said, we have an hour, so I know I'm kind of going a little fast, but luckily this is being recorded. So you can go back and play with these functions. But are there any questions thus far?
What about, just because I know this happens, just because people may have this question, when you have the data and you want to put it in another spreadsheet and you filter the results, can you just copy and paste it into another, or how do they do that?
When I put it into another spreadsheet or another?
Yeah, let's say you have a big old huge spreadsheet and you filtered some results and you need it to be in a different spreadsheet. What's the easiest way to do that? And I'm just putting this out there because that's something you wind up doing all the time.
Yes, and actually that's funny because that leads into my next my next example. So perfect question. Let's see, I'm going to get rid of all my filters. So now, as Jessica mentioned, she wants to move things into another spreadsheet. Oh, thank you, Miriam. Oh, that's a good tip. Okay, so I was reading the comments too. Miriam mentioned that sometimes she makes a copy of the sheet and title it raw data in case she accidentally deletes something or changes something by accident. That's a really good tip. So as Jessica mentioned, a lot of times you might want to filter, create a group of students and then put them on another spreadsheet. So I talked about at the beginning on creating a workbook. So a workbook holds multiple sheets. So I have another question here for myself. As an example, I want to just see students who belong to our Omaha project. So I'm going to put my filter on here. And again, Nebraska, we speak in code. So I know that Omaha is NEOPSI. So that is my Omaha project. These are all students that in this spreadsheet belong to Omaha. Now, this is, I want to move this data so that it's its own spreadsheet. It's not just a filtered Omaha thing. So what I can do is select all using this top left-hand corner. I can select everything, right click and copy. You can also do Control C if you'd rather do that. And then down here at the bottom, there's this plus sign in the circle. If you click that, it'll start a new sheet. So this just automatically labeled itself sheet 1. And then you can either click Control V to paste or just use right click and then paste in there. So all of my Omaha students have now been moved to a sheet of their own. And of course I chose Omaha, which has a lot of students. Okay, so then if I want to keep track of what the sheet is, I can rename this tab down here. See where it says sheet 1. If I double click in there, I can rename that to whatever I want it to be. So it would be Omaha, Omaha project. So now I can toggle between the two here. So now this is my main spreadsheet that we were just working on with all the filters. I take the filter off. You can see this is the one we were working on. This is what I copied and pasted in here. So since I copied it, I didn't cut it. It's all the students still belong in this master sheet here, but now I've made a list of just Omaha students. And again, I like to select everything and in between the cells, double click so that I can read everything and it looks nice.
So in the chat, you have kind of, one person was asking, is it possible to then use this in Google Maps? So, you know, if they had an address, of course they could.
Yes. And I would really like to see us do a Google Map. And I know Jessica, you do that a lot and create things on Google Maps from different sources like this.
Yeah.
So that I think would be a really good, training in the future.
Yeah, maybe we need to do Excel for Google Maps, just do it, focusing on all the things to.
Right, and that's a really good tool for recruiters.
But to answer his question, basically, if that spreadsheet literally had your columns, you know, with addresses or whatever it was that you wanted on your Google Maps, you'd have to have those addresses. It's the same kind of process. You can filter it, you can do everything she's shown you. You just would have to have that information in your spreadsheet that Google could then recognize. And so.
Yes, and I look forward to learning more about that because I don't do that as often.
We can definitely
teaching
do
that one.
We can do that if people want that.
So I'm going to do this example again, but with different data. So now my other question is, I want to make a sheet of statewide PFS. So I want just a list of students who are PFS. So I got to put my filters back here, and then. Okay, so I find my PFS column. I want those who are marked Y for PFS, so that's what I choose. And there's a list of PFS. So I go to the top left and select all. I'm going to Control C this time. I go down to the bottom to the plus sign and create a new sheet. And they pop up kind of in the middle here. So that's my next sheet. I'm going to Control V. Now I have a list of just PFS.
There was one question of, do the sheets, like on your raw data, when you change that, will the other sheets change?
No, they won't. I've created a list of PFS that won't change unless I go in there and change it myself. I can manipulate this, put all kinds of filters on this if I want to, change the colors of things and format them. Oops, I'm trying to double click in here. And it won't change any of the other sheets. So it's just, these are their own worksheet now. Let's see. I'm going to make a couple other sheets and just go through that really quick because I'm going to use them for something else I want to show you. So my next one, I want to make a sheet of facilities and any codes. So I don't want the rest of this data. I just want all my facilities and all my any codes. So I'm going to select this column. If I hold down the Shift key, or you can hold down Control and select multiple columns. If I hold down Control, and if I wanted any of these, I could do that, but I just want these two. So facility name, I hit Control, and now I'm selecting the any code column, which is the facility code. So now that I have those two columns selected, I'm going to right click and copy. And I want to go to the bottom, create a new sheet and paste in there. Now I have just a list of facility names and any codes. So I'm going to just rename this, whoops, facility. And I'm going to do one more because I need that one too. I want a sheet of COE IDs. I just want COE IDs. I don't want the students. I don't want the student information. I just want COE IDs. So I found my COE ID column. I selected that. I'm going to copy, create a new sheet, and paste. So now I have a list of COE IDs. I'm gonna rename that so I know what it is. Okay, so I created those two so that we could move on to removing duplicates and using the remove duplicates function in MIS. There are a lot of reasons you might need to remove duplicates for things, but I'll just do this for a couple of examples that I made up. If I want to know in this, I want a list of facilities that are included in my master spreadsheet, but a lot of them have been repeated. And if I want to remove any duplicate facilities that are here. So I'm going to select everything. And then under the data tab on the top here, under data, there's a function that says remove duplicates. So you click that button and then it takes your headers and it asks, you know, do you want to remove every row that has the same facility name? Or every row that has the same NE code. Because a lot of times schools have the same names, you could choose facility name and NE code, so it will get rid of it if both of those cells have the same information and that's duplicated throughout the spreadsheet. It'll get rid of any duplicates. Sorry, while we're in here, sometimes this isn't checked. It says you can choose that your data has headers. It automatically detected that for me the first time, but I unselected it so you could see it'll have column A and column B. But since we're sorting by facility name and NE code, you want to select my data has headers and then click OK. So now it tells me all of the duplicates that were found, and there are 83 unique values left. So now I have a list of every school that was in that spreadsheet. Now I have a list and they're only listed on there one time. So that's one example of removing duplicates there. And then the other one we created was COE IDs. So for some reason, I wanted to just have a list of the COE IDs that are on there. Now we know that multiple students can be listed on the same COE. So when I have a list of this on this master spreadsheet, there are multiple students that might belong to the same COE. I'll just find one here really quick. You see that this COE ID is the same, but they are two different students. So these are two students on the same COE. So if I just wanted to know, I want to make this list of COEs. I want to remove all the duplicates so I only have each COE listed one time. Then I would just select this column, click remove duplicates. I only have one option here, COE ID, click OK. And now I have removed all the duplicates from this list. So now I have a list of all of the COE IDs included in there. So if I was interested in knowing how many of those there were, I could select that column, look at my countdown here. On that list, there were 411 COEs, unique COEs in that list. Let's see. And I'm kind of watching the comment box here too. I know Jessica is too. So if I'm just trying to cover a lot of ground in the time we have. So if I'm moving too fast or anything, if you have questions, please let me know. I'm going to move on to using these methods for different quality control methods that I use. So in this spreadsheet, I want to make sure that I don't have any filters on because I don't remember what I did. If I want to know which students might be missing an enroll date, I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to add my filters. And I want to go enroll date. And I only want to see blanks. I only want to see blank enroll dates. So these students are missing enroll dates. So what I would normally do is highlight And I know those of you that are joining from Nebraska, the data specialist, shout out, you are used to getting these spreadsheets that have things highlighted to show you what I have questions on. So, but I would highlight, these are students that are missing an enroll date. So that's, you know, and then I could even put in the comment, missing enroll date. And I probably just copy paste that into all of them. And mess with the formatting if I want to. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Doing too much clicking. Okay, anyway. So those are students that are missing an enroll date. If I wanted to look and see how many students are missing a state ID, our lucky data specialists in Nebraska have to enter the state ID manually into MIS 2000, which is a whole lot of fun, I know. But I know everybody that attends a Nebraska school should have a state ID. So I'm going to get rid of anybody who in the age grade group, anybody under 3. Some of our preschools do have state ID, so we'll leave that. OOS stands for our OSY group, our out of school youth. 3 to 5 not in kindergarten. We know that they're not in school, but everybody else, grades K through 12, should have a state ID. So now I have all of those kids here. And then I want to know who's missing a state ID. So I would deselect everything. I only want to see the blanks. So now I know that this list of students is missing state IDs. So I might highlight them and maybe write a comment. Let's see.
I think that same thought process is really helpful. Like say recruiters, you have a bunch of farms you have to visit and you've got spreadsheets and you've commented and you just want to see like who you know, which ones you haven't been visited or something. You could do that same thing and look for the blanks with no comments or no visit dates or that. So that same process applies to all different things that we do, just what's missing in whatever data, you know, what field is not filled out.
Yes, absolutely. Let's see, I'm going to put everybody back. I want to know who is PFS and has not been served yet. Or I want to know who's PFS who has not had instructional services possibly. So I'm going to select my PFS and see which of those PFS students has not been served with instructional services. So I'm going to get rid of anybody with a Y in the instructional services spot. Now I have a list of PFS who have not been served with instructional services, and I can select all of those, highlight them if I want to. Maybe, you know, making a list of who you need to check and see if there's anything they need, maybe check on their school information, things like that. We already sorted QADs that are about to expire. Another one I have here, I know some of these rules only apply to Nebraska, but it's just a kind of for an example. Anybody who has a term type must have a term date with it. So if I want to make sure that there aren't any term dates missing, I can just select, I don't want any blanks. I just want to know who has these term types. Actually, see what I did there? I forgot that I had all these filters on, so I'm just going to reset my filters. It's really easy to forget. So I want everybody with a term type. So I want to get rid of the blanks. Now these are all, then term type means that they've either moved, graduated, end of eligibility, things like that. So I want to know who has a type listed, but may not have a date listed. Find the blanks here. So these guys are the ones in the list that need term dates. So those are just some examples, and I trying to use like real life scenarios that things that I actually do. Let's see, we're getting close on time here. I'm going to move on to the find and select. See, I'm going to get rid of my filters here. So if you're looking for something in a spreadsheet, you're looking for a name, you're looking for a certain student ID, but you don't want to go through and sort through the data that way. If you click the Home tab on the very far right, there's a Find and Select. And if you you select your spreadsheet, so I have everything highlighted in the spreadsheet. I want to find and select, so I'm going to go find. And then this box popped up in a different screen. Okay, so then this box pops up and it says, I want to find, let's see if my name is in here, because I might have put it in there, haha. So is Danielle in here? I'm going to find all. Okay, so it tells me Danielle, the value Danielle is in here once, and it scrolls me down and tells me exactly where I am. So my name is hidden in the project ID spot. Say I want to find Sue. Sue may or may not be in here. I'm going to click Find Next because I did add multiple Sues in here. So we see that it scrolled us and it showed us that Sue is here. And then if I click Find Next, it's going to show me that Sue is in another spot. If I click Find Next, it's going to show me that Sue is in yet another spot. I think I put 3 Sues in here. And so if I keep clicking Find Next, it'll just toggle between all of the Sues that I have. So it's really helpful if you're looking for somebody's name, especially if maybe you have a name that's different. It's written somewhere versus the spreadsheet. Ooh, good tip. Linda says you can also use Control F to use Find and Replace. So instead of going up here and clicking, you can just click Control F and the box pops up. And it keeps popping up on my other screen, is why you don't see it pop up right away. Yes, thank you, Linda. I'm going to show you a quick formula. I know sometimes there's a fine line between what's considered a basic function and what's considered more advanced, but if I want to find how many days are between the enroll date and withdraw date, for whatever reason I want to do that, I can add a column. So I'm going to click here because I want to put a column here. Right click and insert column. There are also other buttons on top that'll insert columns for me. So now I have a blank column and I want the title to be days between. I'm also going to put a filter on so that I want just those that have withdraw dates. So these students all have withdraw dates. I want to get rid of the blank ones. So now I have withdraw dates. So there are a lot of formulas, and my advice for formulas, I really don't have a lot of them in my brain that I keep. I really just, as I need something, I might Google it and figure out what I need as I go, as new situations arise. But if I want to know the days between the enroll date and the withdraw date, you can add a formula where you click inside of the cell, and I want to say that the days between equal. So I want to take the withdraw date, which is column N and row 2. So like we're playing Battleship here. So this is N2. So I want to say N2. And then I want to say minus the enroll date, which is L2. And it gives me this, but I want to change. Where am I? I don't want this to be a date. So I went to the home tab here. I don't want this to be a date. I want it to be a number. So, and then I've got my decimals here that I don't want to get rid of. I just want to know how many days are between. So that's 19 days. So I can do that for if I just, now I don't have to type that into everything. I can just copy. I can click copy, and I'm just going to select a few of these and paste. And it didn't copy the number, it copied my formula. So now it applies to all of these dates. After I ran the report and sent it to you, I realized that I should have put a res date in here, because what I actually use this for is just to kind of analyze recruiters' efforts, recruiting efforts. We'll look at the dates between the res date when the family arrived versus the date of the interview on the COE or COE date. That tells us how long it took the recruiter to find those families. And from there, you can use that information to kind of analyze, you know, why did it take so long to find this family? Which families are we finding the fastest? And then you can say, you know, which methods have I been using to find those families? What's working, what's not? So all sorts of scenarios there. And then the very last thing, look, we have 1 minute left, and I'm going to show you how to password protect, because a lot of times you have files that have a lot of private information about your students. So you always want to be able to password protect these, especially if you're sending them through email or however you, you know, whatever you're doing with them. So if you want to protect your workbook, you would click File up on the top, and then this comes up and it says Protect Workbook. I want to encrypt with a password. I put a password in, I click OK, and then I retype my password, and now a password will be required to open it, but it won't be there unless you click Save. Don't forget your password because you won't be able to open it. So now I saved this workbook, and next time I open it, it's going to require a password to open it. And that is what I had on my list for today. So we're right at 2 o'clock, or 2 o'clock my time, I should say. Are there any other questions? You guys have all had really good questions, and thank you for sharing, those of you that shared extra tips in here too. I think we all learned from each other really well with things like this.
You did have one quick thing. Can you repeat that password? And can you do that real quick to show them?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. All right. So you go to File up here in the File tab, Protect Workbook. Click that, encrypt with a password. Select that. It asks you to type in your password. Click OK, or well, here, I'll do a different one. Encrypt with a password. Click OK. Then retype your password. If it doesn't match, it'll tell you it doesn't match. It'll ask you to type in 2 that match. And then you click Save to make sure you save your password. Alexander Johnson says, yes, very important to remember the password. I've done that so many times, it is frustrating. So anyway, that is what I have. So I said my biggest piece of advice is to learn as you go and use your resources. If there's something that you want to do in Excel, if you just say, how do I whatever in Google, you can usually find some really good resources. YouTube has a lot of Excel lessons if you want to sit and watch some of those to learn more. But I today wanted to really just apply it to how I use it in the MEP.
And if you guys, as always, we're always asking you for our evaluation. That is something we are required for the consortium, but I would also like to especially ask you when you're filling out the evaluation, if this kind of training is helpful for you and you have some more ideas of things that you hope that we cover in trainings, we really do want to make sure that we're, you know, really focused on your needs. So if you'll fill out the evaluation, it's in the link, also the chat box. I'm sending it right now. If you'll fill that out and then put any suggestions, we do review that and do take it back to like groups like Danielle's group, just to see how we can help you. And Danielle, thank you very much. Very, very good, good training.
I have my contact information there too, and feel free to reach out if you, you know, if you need help with something or have any questions about anything data related. I can certainly do what I can to help.
And we will record this. It is being recorded, and I will put it up on the webinar page of the IDRC Consortium. Just if you go to the front page of the website and just look under webinars, you'll find it. We do record all of ours and post them there. So, very good. I think we had one more. Yeah, we will post the presentation there. I'll go ahead and stop recording right now.